Welcome to the Essence of Homeschooling podcast, brought to you by the umbrella school, Start Academy. We empower and equip you to cultivate the authentic homeschool lifestyle where freedom and relationships rule.
Welcome back to the Essence of Homeschooling, where we now will offer you some ideas for lower elementary and how to teach them, train them in specific subject matters. We'll go through math, language arts, science, social studies, and then just give some ideas for the other extra fun things as well. I'm here with Kim and Stacy, and I'm Michelle. And we're so happy you've come back again to listen. We hope this is helpful and that your imagination is sparked.
So in the lower grades, and we're talking basically pre-K through second grade in this podcast, certainly there is curriculum out there, lots of good curriculum, but so much of what they learn at this age can really be done easily just in activities of daily living without any formal curriculum. In fact, we really often steer people away from curriculum at the younger ages, not necessarily push it super hard unless there's something that is super helpful for you as a guideline. Yeah, that can be helpful. Or your kiddo really has an aptitude for that or a desire to do those kinds of things. But otherwise, you can do a lot of things just in your daily life. Let's start with lower elementary math, because that's super easy to add in throughout your day. In your daily life, you think about all the ways that you can use math in the kitchen, even at the park or doing laundry or wherever you are. There's lots of counting that you can do in your daily life. How many sticks can you stack up? How many rocks did you collect? Things like that.
In the same way you could do measurement, length, weight, volume, while you're playing, while you're on a nature walk, while you're cooking. A lot of different ways to work that in.
And kids love songs too. So there's ways that you can count with songs. The skip counting. There's so many songs out there for how to skip count, the 2s, the 5s, the 10s. And 2s are easy because they come in pairs. If you have Noah's Ark animals or you have colored Legos, put them in pairs. There's ways to make the counting and the skip counting fun and then count in that way. Your hand has 5 fingers. Your hands and feet, there's 10. There's ways to have fun with that.
Absolutely. And kids love learning how to string beads and make patterns and work with those colored tangram pieces to make different figures. I don't know if you've seen those. There's lovely ones that are made from wood. I think it's Melissa and Doug, I think, puts those out.
They do so
a lot
much.
of places you can find those. Lots of fun things to do there. Patterns are super important with math.
Usually those patterns, certain shapes have a certain color. So you're also teaching your colors on that same thing. There's a really neat one out there that's magnetic. So it stays on the board better. And you can practice with how do these shapes fit together to make an elephant? And they have the outline of the elephant.
Yeah, that's really fun. We used to have a game that we would play even as adults. Who can make the tangram design the quickest?
Yes.
A lot of fun for any age.
What other games did you like for math?
There's so many math games out there. You can make up games with playing cards or Uno cards. You can play war, where you decide on what your strategy is going to be. Who has the higher number when you lay down your cards, things like that. I don't know. Do you guys remember the game Hi-Ho Cherry-O, where you would gather up your cherries and put them in the tree, things like that. So all sorts of fun things out there. Have you seen others that you like?
We had a game, and I cannot remember the name, but it was based on an ancient Egypt theme, and you built a pyramid, but you had to, when you were little, either just use addition, and then as I got older, you could use addition, subtraction, and then you could build in multiplication and division, all to get to the top number of your pyramid, which was the goal, any way you could get there. So I really liked that game because it took them all the way from 1 plus 1 to addition, subtraction, multiplication, division.
Nice. Logic game is good as well, where they have to figure out even the ones where you move the little cars to get them out of the parking lot. Any kind of logic game is great for math.
We used a curriculum all the way through that came with a manipulatives box for K through fifth, possibly fourth. And so my kids loved getting out that manipulatives box, and it had scales and little bears that you could use to count and all sorts of things. So anything hands-on was a big hit.
Because it helps them be able to classify and organize and group different things. And you can change the grouping by size or by color or by shape or different things like that. You can even play with their fruit snacks in different things before they get to eat them. How many of this flavor do you have? And make a graph. And it's just a way to play, but also be teaching at the same time.
Yeah, manipulatives are really important with the younger years because they're still very much concrete thinkers, and that abstract
Mhm.
thinking skill doesn't really start to kick in usually until maybe third or fourth grade. Kids vary in that, but manipulatives are super important. And you can, like you said, Michelle, use anything that you have in front of you at the time, whether you're at the park or somewhere around the house.
And it's easy to pull in coins and use your money. So one, they can learn what the coins look like, the money, the nickels, the dimes, the quarters, and but organizing those and playing with those to learn, right? That's also another way to learn to count by ones, by fives, by tens, by 25, which is harder, but oh my gosh, when they get that 25, 50, 75, and you start later talking about, okay, you know what a quarter is, because a quarter is a piece of money that they already know how to count by quarters because you taught them money.
Yeah, it
Makes
helps
fractions a little easier.
decimals, percents, yep, place value, all those things. And don't you think too that it's important to do those analog kinds of things like money, real money versus digital money? And then when you teach them how to tell time, looking at a clock versus just the digital numbers and having that sense of how time moves on a clock. Super important.
You mentioned playing with the money. Another game, which it doesn't use real money, of course, but there's a Monopoly Junior,
Yeah.
right? There's a way to learn, and here's your adding and you're subtracting all at the same time, but also learning money and
Mhm.
how that works. Do you have ideas on how to teach littles about time?
I think it starts with understanding of morning, noon, and night, daytime, nighttime, super basic at the very start. And then talking about it during the day as you're doing your activities. Oh, it's 9 o'clock. It's time for feeding the cat, or it's noon. It's time for lunch. Things like that. So working that into your vocabulary so that they're familiar with that, the verbiage throughout the day, and then going from there. I think that and having those little play clocks where they can actually hold it and move the hands around. When you move the minute hand, the hour hand moves too, those kinds of things. Definitely, again, more manipulatives, hands-on kinds of things.
And even those clocks that it's another Melissa and Doug thing. You take out a certain shape and it's the 12. Like the 12 is a star, the 1 is a diamond, the 2 is a circle, the 3 is a square. So you're learning your numbers, you're learning where they go on the clock, and you're learning a shape and maybe even a color all at the same time.
And it feels like a game to them, feels like a toy. They're just having fun. They're playing, but they're learning. And did your kids love to organize things? Their stuffed animals or their little cars or things like that? I had one kid that especially loved to do that. And we saw that early on. We took him to like a pumpkin patch or something. And we look over and he was, I don't know, he was like 2.5 or something. And he had gotten a whole bunch of wagons and was lining them up and organizing these wagons, pulling them into a line in a certain way. I thought, "That's that's interesting." And that's something that he was interested to do. And he was learning how things lined up, making patterns, and he's just playing. He's having fun out there at the pumpkin patch.
Because, like we said before, play is the work of children, right?
Yeah.
So there's also many well-known curriculum options out there to teach math, but a lot of this depends on the learning style of your child. So you can check them out online before you spend money on them. And you can also realize in a lot of these ways, you've probably already done it with your skip counting, your beads, all the other ways we've said here with games. But what are some of the curriculum that you guys know that is good for math for lower elementary?
I don't know if I would necessarily call it a curriculum, but a couple of things that we used actually did involve videos. There was a delightful little video with a puppet from Bob Jones University Press, BJU Press, called Backyard Math with Zach. And it was just a cute little puppet that explained math concepts to kids in a way that was really understandable and relatable. And then another series that we liked a lot was called Mathtacular. And there are videos and workbooks, and you can pick up the videos online. I think it's just mathtacular.com, but we can check that out, put that in the notes. But those are some fun ones. And then there's also a website you can look up that it does have curriculum called Wild Math. Wild Learning, I think, is the parent sort of website. And it shows you ideas of how to be out in nature and to use what's in front of you to teach math, whether you're dividing your bouquet of flowers into 4 sets of 3 and you're learning your times tables that way, or whatever it might be. But that's a nice little curriculum.
We really liked the Right Start math games. And I
Yes.
think it's by alabacus.com. But having that book and learning how to play games to teach the basic math skills just made it more fun. Instead of go fish, it was go to the dump. And you had to, instead of getting pairs, you had to make 10. So your 2 and your 8 you needed. So if you had the 2, you had to ask for the 8 instead.
Ah, clever.
So that book is full of ideas.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think sometimes too, you can find books like that at the library, math games for kids, that type of thing, if you're running short on ideas. So then moving on to lower elementary language arts, obviously the one that we're always big on here is reading. Read all the books all the time.
Welcome to Start Academy. We are an umbrella school that fulfills legal reporting requirements for homeschoolers in Colorado. But all of our services like transcripts, diplomas, IDs, and coaching are available no matter where you live. Don't forget to check out our store for homeschool essentials like attendance logs, planners, report cards, and DIY high school transcripts. Whether you need help with paperwork, planning, support, or guidance on your homeschool journey, Start Academy is here to support you. Visit theumbrellaschool.com to learn more.
And even when my kids were little, they got their own, as soon as they were able, got their own library card. And it was a weekly trip to the library and picking out their own books. And sometimes we needed a wagon to take all of our books to the car. We had I think our personal all-time, I don't know, limit we reached was we all hit our limit at the same time of how many books you could check out of the library. I think we had like 60, 65 books one time we had checked out, and I thought, oh no, this can't be good. So we had to obviously keep them organized. And yeah, I lost a library book or two along the way, but
Sure.
it was just part of our daily life. And even when they're little, they can find the joy in that. And sure, sometimes it's about other things at the library besides the books. There's other activities that your library puts on. Sometimes crafts, sometimes storytelling time, things like that. And so it's just a great resource, even when they're little. And then they associate going to the library as a special thing you do every week or every other week. And it's a happy time, it's a happy place.
I'm going to mention 2 books, a really series of books that actually are math adventure books, which my kids loved going back to. So you can even use books and math, but it was the Circumference series. And it's funny because his wife is diameter and his son is radius. So it was teaching them the basics in such a funny way. They do charts and things like that. And those are by, oh, this author is excellent, Cindy Neuschwander. And she has other books too, like Pastry School in Paris, Teaching Capacity. So she's an excellent resource for using books even in math.
Another good resource is the Read Aloud Revival with Sarah Mackenzie. It's a website you can look up. And she has all kinds of reading suggestions, book suggestions, I should say. And she's really all about, like it says in the title, reading out loud with your family, even as your kids get older, which sometimes we let that slide the older they get, but they like that too. But a great resource.
And then the audiobooks in the car too. Or even at home when you don't feel well, put an audiobook in and let them read to your kids while you're still all together.
Don't forget simple things like tracing letters in the dirt or in the air, playing in the bathtub, making Play-Doh letters, using sidewalk chalk. Anything that you can combine play with those fine motor skills and teaching a language arts aspect of it is a win, I think.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And poetry. Poetry is great because it's playing with what kind of things rhyme. And you can start the rhyme and they can finish the rhyme. Those are great ways to play together as well.
Yeah, kids love that. And things like Dr. Seuss, Hop on Pop, all those kinds of things. Perfect for the lower grades.
And if they're really interested in their letters, you can make an alphabet notebook all your own. If they're learning the letters, what kind of things start with different letters, they can cut out pictures and paste them in it or anything you want. And if they're ready, if they have the fine motor skills and gross motor skills for writing in it, let them do the copy work.
They're ready. Yeah, and even pasting in things that are physical representations. Like if you're working on the letter F, they find a feather outside and they tape that into their notebook.
We haven't talked about things like Legos, Connects, Lincoln Logs. I think those things are cross curricula items. They can be language arts, they can be math. They can take on a variety of learning areas depending on how you play with them. And that's another thing maybe to let your child take the lead.
Good point.
That's great.
And building those fine and gross motor skills are just super important in general because we know, have you seen those x-rays of children's hands and how their bones aren't even really connected in
Yes.
the hand? It's the weirdest thing. But their little hands, they physically aren't always, they're not ready to hold a pencil or even a crayon sometimes until they physically mature. And so we can help them. Play is a big part of that, building those fine and gross motor skills. But it's important. So they need to build their muscle strength with those gross motor skills and then the fine motor skills with things like tracing and mazes and learning how to use scissors and doing puzzles. A fun one is picking up cotton balls with a clothespin and dropping it into a cup, things like that.
And then fun ways to do it too with how you've spent your day with your kids is let them tell dad when he gets home from work or mom if dad's the one at home, however it is. But let them tell the rest of the family what they've done. It helps them grow in their narration, their speaking skills, their ability to put their thoughts into the spoken word. That's all a part of language arts.
Absolutely. So then coming down to the nitty-gritty of teaching your child to read. There definitely are a lot of good curriculum options out there. Teach your child to read in 100 easy lessons is one. Another one's just simply called The Reading Lesson. We have several options out there. Hooked on Phonics is another one. Becca has a good option as well, which actually they had a little blue book with an apple on it that a lot of people use for many years. Now it's a little bit harder to find, but it's also another good option. But those things are really phonics based, and phonics for a while it had a bad name and people were all about the sight words. Only teach with sight words. And really the pendulum swings academically over the years, and really the sweet spot's right in the middle. You need the phonics for sure, but it's not the only thing. There's words in the English language that simply don't follow the rules. So we teach our sight words. So you have to do both and expose your kids to both. But again, when they're ready, especially your littles, you're going to be doing things that are much more simple. B makes the B sound, and your simple blends, cat, things like that. And then it does seem to come together. And people had told me this before I started homeschooling my own kids. And so when my boys were little and first learning how to read, I thought, okay, I'm just going to trust the process of reading, because for a while, they seemed to be stuck at the k act stage, cat, and really very halting. And I had learned through talking to other homeschool moms and my own research that it's almost like overnight a switch flips in their brains. It all comes together, whether it's a physical kind of maturing of their actual brain. And all of a sudden the next day, they look at the word and they say cat. And it just clicks like that. And I experienced that with both of my kids, where they started reading and they looked at me like, Mom, are you seeing this? Are you hearing this? And I said, yeah, keep going. And the next thing you knew, they'd read a book, their very first book by themselves. Super exciting. So I think just being patient and trusting that process as you build on those foundational building blocks is an important thing to remember.
Then how did you move into spelling? What importance did you put on spelling at that point?
We played with it as a game in our house. Sometimes we would pretend it was a secret code. And I would say, go get the MILK and see if they could figure it out, things like that. And then after a while, they were spelling things to me. Mom, I need my BOK, things like that. So we had fun with it for sure, spelling things around the house, and then also putting signs around the house. And we didn't do this very long, but for a little while, we would label things around the house so they could see what the written word looked like matched up to the actual physical object, whatever that was.
That's awesome. How would you grow your kids' vocabulary other than reading?
Reading, and of course, and hearing you use words in conversation definitely teaches them vocabulary. It can also teach them spelling. It can teach them all the language arts skills all in one by reading and listening.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've talked about Ruth B. Chick before. And that was one of her main thoughts, was to learn it organically.
How about grammar?
Yeah, same thing, teaching it very organically. So sure, you can teach them about adjectives, but not with a worksheet. You look around the room, how many things can you find that are red? Red is an adjective. Or how many adjectives can we use to describe this fish? And you teach it just again along the way. And you can play with even things like prepositions with young children, using a toy or a piece of candy and a cup. Is the toy under the cup, or put the toy on top of the cup, and practicing with just the things that they're already using, their things that are in front of them.
And even when they are writing and reading, Mad Libs never get old.
Yeah.
because it's just a way to have fun and laugh at the different words that you can come up with and the silly ways stories can come together.
Love Mad Libs. Those are great.
How about some curriculum ideas for these littles?
A few things that you could check into to see if they would work for your family are things like handwriting without tears, explode the code, all about reading and all about spelling, eating eggs, 5 in a row, draw right now, phonics pathways. And there's a new one that I'm not familiar with, but it's called Lively Letters. Have either of you used Lively Letters?
I haven't used it, but it was just recommended by a friend of the homeschool world, Tara Reel. And so I took a look at it. She's a speech therapist, pretty well known in the Front Range. And so when I looked at it, I thought, if Tara's recommending this, it's probably top notch, and it looks like it's very user friendly. Kids are touching things or hearing things or seeing things, multimodal like that.
Sounds great.
And I feel like a good segue here, another great curriculum is Beautiful Feet, because it combines literature with other topics. They have a horse study, but it's a great one to then jump into and learn history or social studies, as it is often referred to.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode. We hope that you enjoyed the conversation and found it insightful. Be sure to check out today's show notes for all applicable links and additional resources. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe, rate, and review our podcast. Your support helps us continue to bring you great content. Until next time, happy homeschooling.